Welcome to the audiobook channel. Here, we bring you a treasure trove of knowledge and entertainment from classic literature to inspiring modern books. We hope to bring you interesting and rewarding experiences, making it easy for you to access knowledge whether you are on the go or relaxing at home. Join us in exploring the world of fascinating stories and valuable lessons through each page of the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Part 1. 6 Ways to Make a Good Impression. Chapter 2. The Biggest Secret in Behavior. There is only one effective way to get someone to do what you want. And remember, there is no other way. If we pull someone's hair with one hand, point a gun at someone's head with the other and shout loudly, "How much property do you have? Give it all to me," frowning and challenging our employees, "If you don't work hard, I will fire you immediately. Look how many people want to be my employees," holding a large rattan stick and shouting at a little boy, "You fool. If you keep playing and dirtying your clothes, I will beat you 100 times. Imagine what would happen in the 3 cases above. What all 3 cases have in common is that the people we threaten will do what we ask. But more importantly, they will do it with persistence, annoyance, frowning and resentment. Worse, they will do the opposite. The man with the gun may fight back. The employee will work hard in front of him but lie behind his back, or find another job with a better boss. And the child will still go out and sneak home to take a shower before you know it. Instead of forcing others to do what you want, the simpler way to get others to do anything is, let them do what they want. The famous psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud said, "All human actions spring from 2 motives, sexual pride and the desire to be important." John Dewey, one of the most profound philosophers in the United States, had a slightly different view. The deepest motive in human nature is the desire to express oneself. So what do you crave for yourself? What intense needs are burning inside you? Most of us desire the following. 1. Good health and a peaceful life. 2. Food we like. 3. Good sleep. 4. Money and material comforts. 5. A good life in the afterlife. 6. Satisfaction in sexual life. 7. Healthy, well-educated children. 8. A sense of importance. Most of these desires are usually satisfied, except for a deep and urgent desire, such as food or sleep, which is rarely satisfied. This is what Freud called the desire to be important, or the desire to be appreciated, that Dewey mentioned. President Lincoln wrote, "Every man likes to be praised," and William James believed, the deepest principle of human nature is the desire to be approved. Not just wanting, or desiring, but desiring to be appreciated. Want refers to a persistent, unfulfilled desire, and those who can actually satisfy this desire control the behavior of others. The desire to feel important is one of the most fundamental differences between humans and other animals. When I was a boy in rural Missouri, my father raised funny white-faced Jersey Douro pigs. We often exhibited these pigs and other livestock at country fairs and livestock shows throughout the Midwest. We always won first place in competitions, winning blue ribbons. My father used to hang these ribbons on a thin white cloth. When friends or guests came to visit, my father would unfold the cloth and show it off. He held one end and I held the other, and he told everyone about each award with pride in his eyes. Pigs didn't care about the awards they had won, but my father did. These awards made him feel important. If our ancestors did not have a burning desire to feel important, there would be no unique civilization, and we humans would be no better than other animals today. It was this desire to feel important that drove a poor, uneducated grocery clerk to study old law books he found at the bottom of a trash can that he bought for 50 cents. You may have heard of this grocer. His name was Lincoln. And it was the desire to feel important that drove Charles Dickens to write his immortal novels. It was the desire that drove Christopher Wren to write his symphonies on stone. And it was the desire that helped Rockefeller make millions of dollars without spending a penny. When we wear fashionable clothes, use branded goods, drive trendy cars, use fancy cell phones, talk about our smart children, we are expressing our desire to be considered important. However, this desire also has a dark side. Many young people join gangs, engage in criminal activities, use heroin and ecstasy to assert themselves, to be considered Superman by society. E.P. Mulrooney, commissioner of the New York Police Department, said, "Most young criminals have very large egos. Their first request after being caught is to see what the press has to say about them. The way people express their importance is a great indicator of their true nature." John D. Rockefeller found his sense of importance by donating money to build a modern hospital in Beijing to treat millions of poor people he had never met and never intended to meet. Dillinger loved to achieve his sense of importance by murder and robbery. When the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, pursued him, he He stormed a farm in Minnesota and declared with obvious pride, "I am Dillinger." In fact, this is a very human element. Almost everyone has it. If one does not consider the desire to be important a human attribute, one will be surprised to learn that even the most famous and respected figures in human history had this desire. One might wonder why a great man like George Washington would want to be called Mr. President of the United States. One wonders why a man as brilliant as Christopher Columbus would have wanted the title of Admiral of the Ocean and Viceroy of India. And one is even more surprised to learn that the great Queen Catherine refused to open any letter unless it was addressed to her. Billionaires agreed to finance Admiral Beard's expedition to the South Pole in 1928 with the sole request that the icebergs there be named after them. Victor Hugo wanted nothing more than to have the city of Paris renamed after him. Even Shakespeare, who was called the greatest of the greats, wanted to add glory to his name by asking the royal family to grant him a peerage. Sometimes people cripple themselves to gain pity, to gain attention, to feel important. First Lady McKinley sought a sense of importance by forcing her husband to stay by her side even when she went to the dentist. President William McKinley of the United States took several hours off work each day to stay by her bedside and rock her to sleep. She fed her burning desire for attention by insisting that he stay with her even when she went to the dentist. Once, she flew into a rage when he dared to leave her alone with the dentist because he had to attend an important meeting with the Secretary of State. The writer Mary Roberts Rinehart once told me about a bright and healthy girl who became ill just to feel important. She stayed in bed for 10 years, Rinehart said, while her old mother had to go up and down 3 flights of stairs to take care of her every day. One day her old mother got very sick and died. She was actually bedridden for a few weeks, but then she quickly recovered and began to live a normal, healthy life as if she had never been sick. People can even go crazy to find in the madness a sense of importance, something they cannot have in this naked world. Many people immerse themselves in fighting in computer games to turn themselves into heroes, while in real life, they are just ordinary people, without status or social status. A chief neurologist of the most prestigious psychiatric hospital in the United States asserted that many patients have found in the mad world a sense of being an important person that they cannot have in real life. He told me the following story. Recently, I had a female patient who had a family tragedy. She wanted to be cared for, wanted to be comforted, wanted to be loved. She wanted to have children and have social status, but real life trampled on all her wishes. Her husband did not love her. He did not even sit down to eat with her, but forced her to serve him in an upstairs room. She had no children and no social status. As a result, she became mentally ill. In her imagination, she saw herself divorced from her husband, once again becoming a free woman. Then she thought she had married a member of the British aristocracy, and insisted on being called Mrs. Smith. Moreover, she imagined that every night she had a new child. "Every time I visited her," she said, "Doctor, I gave birth last night." Life had driven all her dream ships into the sharp rocks of reality. But on the sunny islands of her crazy imagination, the dream ship arrived with sails fluttering happily in the wind. The doctor assured me, if I could cure her just by straightening her face, I wouldn't do it. She's much happier living like this. If some people crave the feeling of importance so much that they go crazy to get it, imagine what wonders you and I would achieve if we could get it without having to go to crazy fantasies. One of the first people in America to be paid more than $1 million a year was Charles Schwab. This was before the personal income tax, and when a person was considered wealthy if he earned $50 a week. He was appointed the first president of the United States Steel Corporation by Andrew Carnegie in 1921 when he was only 38 years old. Why did Andrew Carnegie agree to pay Charles Schwab $1 million a year, or nearly $30,000 a day? Was it because Charles Schwab was a genius, or because he knew more about steel than anyone else? Not at all. Charles Schwab himself told me that many of the people who worked for him knew more about steel processing than he did. The reason Schwab was paid so much was because he had the ability to persuade people. He shared that his secret was the ability to create excitement in the people he worked with, to bring out the best in a person by recognizing, praising and encouraging them. There is no way to kill a person's dreams and efforts like the attitude and criticism of a superior. I never criticize anyone. I believe in motivating people to work. This makes me always want to praise others and do not like to hurt their mistakes. If I like something, I will always encourage and motivate with all my sincerity, and they respond with the most enthusiasm. That is what Schwab did. So how do mediocre people behave? They do the exact opposite. If they do not like something, they will yell at their employees, but if they like something, they will not say anything. As the old saying goes, no matter how well you do, no praise, one mistake, a lifetime of reminders. In my entire life, I have never met anyone who did their job well without the support of others, Schwab shares. So did Andrew Carnegie, and that was one of the reasons for the extraordinary success of the King of Steel. Andrew Carnegie praised his associates, both publicly and privately. Even on his tombstone, he praised all those who worked for him. Here lies a man who knew how to gather men better than himself. Sincere praise and appreciation were among the first secrets that helped John D. Rockefeller succeed in dealing with people. When his employee Edward Bedford lost $1 million in a deal in South America, instead of criticizing him, John D. Rockefeller praised Bedford for saving 60% of the money Rockefeller had invested. Rockefeller did so because he knew that Edward had done his best. He said, "That's great. We don't always do that well." Among the newspaper clippings I left behind was a humorous story that I know is not true but illustrates a truth. Let me tell you, once, after a hard day's work, a farmer's wife threw a pile of hay in front of the men in her family instead of serving dinner as usual. When they angrily asked her if she was crazy, she replied, "I've been cooking for you for 20 years and in all that time I've never heard anyone thank me or tell me that you don't know how to eat hay." A study a few years ago on why wives leave their homes found that the main reason for this was lack of recognition and appreciation. And I'm sure that if there were a study on why husbands leave their homes, it would yield similar results. We often take our spouses for granted, so we rarely say a word of thanks or appreciation to them. A student in our class told us that his wife and a group of other women in her church were participating in a self-improvement program. She asked him to help her by listing 6 things he thought she could change to be a better wife. He told the class, "I was surprised by such a request. Honestly, I could have easily listed 6 things I wanted her to change. And of course, she could have listed 1,000 things she wanted me to change, but I didn't. I said, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you tomorrow morning." The next morning, I got up early, bought my wife 6 roses, and a card that read, "I can't think of 6 things I want you to change. I love you just the way you are." When I got home that afternoon, my wife greeted me with tears in her eyes. Needless to say, I was extremely happy that I had not judged her as she had asked. The following Sunday at church, after my wife reported the results of her homework, some of the women who had studied with her came up to me and said, "We have never heard such a polite, thoughtful, and sweet gesture before." After that, I truly understood the power of gratitude and appreciation. I once followed the fasting movement and tried to fast for 6 days and 6 nights. It was not that difficult. At the end of the 6th day, I was no more hungry than at the end of the 2nd day. However, it is a great mistake to let our family or employees fast for 6 days. However, we let our beloved families, our hard-working and dedicated employees, go 6 weeks or even 60 years without a sincere thank you. We forget that they are as hungry for our praise as a person is for a good meal. Alfred Lunt, one of the greatest actors of all time, who starred in Reunion in Vienna, said, "What I need more than anything in my life is the cultivation of self-esteem." We nurture our children physically and care for the material well-being of our employees, but we rarely nurture or instill in them self-esteem. We may feed them delicious food, but we often forget to give them the sincere compliments that they will remember like the sweetest melodies. Paul Harvey, in one of his radio shows, told a story that illustrates how sincere praise and appreciation can change a person's life. Many years ago, a teacher in Detroit asked Stevie Morris to help her find a mouse in her classroom. She appreciated Stevie's talent and told Stevie that God had given Stevie a good pair of ears to compensate for his blindness. Little did she know that this was actually the first time Stevie was truly appreciated by others, appreciated for his hearing ability, and forgot about his previous disability. To this day, Stevie admits that this appreciation was a turning point in his life. Since being appreciated and discovering his hearing talent, he has worked hard to develop his ability until becoming one of the greatest pop singers and songwriters of the 70s, under the legendary name of Stevie Wonder. When you read these stories, you might say, "Oh my, what meaningless flattery." I have tried it too, but this method is really not good, especially for those who are sensitive and hate hypocrisy and flattery. Of course, flattery rarely succeeds with those who are knowledgeable and able to distinguish between flattery and sincere praise and thanks, because flattery is superficial, selfish, completely dishonest, and will surely fail. However, there are some people who are so hungry for praise that they swallow any compliment like a hungry person eats vegetables and worms in it. Fake flattery is like counterfeit money. It will be difficult for us to give it to others. What is the difference between appreciation and flattery? It is very simple. One is sincere and the other is insincere. One comes from the heart, the other comes from the mouth. One is selfless, sincere, the other is selfish, purposeful. One is felt and touched by everyone, the other is condemned by everyone. I recently saw a bust of the Mexican hero, General Alvaro Obregón at the Chapultepec Palace in Mexico. Obregón's philosophical words are engraved below: "Fear not the enemies who attack you, but the friends who flatter you." That's right. I'm not advocating flattery. I'm talking about a new way of life. I repeat, a new way of life. King George V wrote a series of 6 maxims on the wall of his study at Buckingham Palace. One of them reads, "Prevent me from giving and receiving cheap compliments." All flattery is cheap compliments. I like this definition. Flattery is telling others exactly what they want to think of themselves. When our minds are free, we spend almost 95% of our time thinking about ourselves. Stop thinking about yourself for a moment, and start thinking about the good of others. Then you and I will find that we no longer need flattery. It's just cheap and fake. One of the most neglected values in our daily lives is gratitude. For some reason, we often forget to praise our children when they bring home their diploma or report card for their good academic performance last month. We forget to encourage them when they bake a cake for the first time or clean up their study corner by themselves. Nothing makes children happier than the attention and praise of their parents. Whenever I enjoy a delicious dish at a restaurant, I always remind myself to tell the chef that the dish was delicious. When I see a tired but still kind salesperson with a customer, I always remind myself to thank him for his dedicated and enthusiastic service. All the actors, singers and speakers in the world get discouraged if they don't receive any applause from the audience. If this is true for professional performers, it is doubly true for those who work in offices, shops, factories, in our families and among our friends. In all our interpersonal relationships, we should always remember that everyone we work with is a human being, and they all crave recognition, appreciation and respect for what they do. Light a fire of sincere gratitude towards everyone in your life. This fire will spread to you timeless values. Criticizing or insulting others will never awaken or change them for the better, so never do it. There is a great quote that I have posted on my mirror so I can see it every day. I only live in this world once, so if I can do something good or show kindness or gratitude to anyone, I will do it immediately, because I know I will not live a second time, or I fear I will not have the chance. The philosopher Emerson said, "Everyone I meet is better than me in some way, and I always learn something from them." Hopefully this is true for you and me. Stop thinking about your own achievements and desires and try to understand the good points of others. People will appreciate your compliments and always be motivated to do similar good things throughout their lives. Knowing how to sincerely praise and thank those around you is a magic wand that creates great affection and spiritual encouragement. It is the joy when each person is cared for, recognized and loved. Each person who is sincerely praised will naturally correct his bad qualities to become more perfect. The deepest motive in human nature is the desire to express himself. American philosopher John Dewey. Principle 2. Praise and thank others
Cảm
sincerely.
ơn bạn đã
Thank
theo
you
dõi
for
và ủng hộ
following
kênh
and
của chúng tôi.
supporting our channel. Your
Sự đồng hành của
companionship
bạn
is
là
a
động
great
lực lớn
motivation
để
for
chúng
us to
tôi tiếp tục
continue
tạo
creating
ra những nội
quality and
dung chất
useful
lượng và bổ
content.
ích.
Don't
Đừng
forget to
quên đăng ký
subscribe to
kênh
the
để
channel
không
so
bỏ
you
lỡ
won't
những
miss our
video
latest
mới nhất nhé.
videos. Please
Hãy
click
nhấn
the
vào nút
subscribe
đăng ký
button
và
and
bật
turn
thông
on
báo để luôn
notifications
cập
to
nhật
stay
những tin
updated
tức
with
và
interesting
video
news and
thú vị
videos
từ
from
chúng
us.
tôi.
Thank you very
Cảm ơn
much.
bạn rất nhiều.